Assalamualaikum and a very good day. I bid to Prof. Jamila and also my fellow classmates. Today, my group will be presenting on our case study about sensory characteristic of foods of Malaysia and how cultural background and region affect acceptability. Before I proceed with the presentation, I will introduce my name first. My name is Nuriza binti Abdul Hadi and my matrix number is 200549.
My name is Aina Afika binti Maidres. My matrix number is 200647.
My name is Nur Alana Naswa binti Muhammad Azman. My matrix number is 200,690.
My name is Nisha binti Shaini and my matrix number is 203891. So to start with introduction, sensory evaluation is a key method to assess the flavor quality of foods because it measures what consumers really perceive. Some of the sensory are taste, touch, and also smell. However, sensory evaluation are actually a subjective method because different individuals have different taste bud or a different way to describe one type of food. For example, one consumer may describe a sample as unpalatable, while another consumer may consider the same sample acceptable. These differences are common in sensory evaluation and can be explained by nationality, culture, individual variation, etc. So next. As for the findings, we actually study the food trends for three major ethnics in Malaysia, which is Malays, Chinese, and also Indians. Some of the criteria are main flavors, type of protein preferred, and also cooking style. So for example, the main flavors in Malay cuisine are curry, spicy, tom yum, and rendang, whereas the cooking style are fried and grilled. In Indian cuisine, curry is the most preferred flavor, and in Chinese cuisine, mushroom, kampion, and spicy are the main flavors preferred. Okay, so in this table, it actually differentiate the food culture practices for Malay, Chinese, and Indian in Malaysia. Some of the criteria that we analyze are food ingredients, meals, cooking techniques, food, and also culture. So most of Malay food actually influenced by Al-Quran, which we apply the halal haram concept. Whereas in Chinese, the concept of yin, shi, fan, concept of 5 elements, and much more. Okay, as for Indian, they apply the concept of Ayurveda, Ushna, and some cuisine are specifically for vegetarian. So the food ingredients for Malay cuisine actually depends on food resources that are available as long as it is halal. And for Chinese, at the north side, they prefer a more oily dishes. At south side, they use a lot of chili powder. And for Cantonese cuisine, they prefer a much sweeter dishes. And for Indian, north side, they use a lot of milk. South side, they use rice-based dishes. West side, they use sweeter dishes. And east side, they use grain-based dishes. As for meals, it differs because we celebrate different festivals and special occasion. For Malay, we have a lot of cultural festivals such as Hari Raya and also for weddings. And for Chinese, New Year celebration, funeral, birth, etc. So for funeral, we actually cannot consume meat. And for Indian, they have many religious rituals and ceremonies. And cooking techniques also influence the flavors, application, and how it is assembled. So it differs for three of these ethnics. So for Malay, they use pot, pan, natural materials like bamboo and banana leaves. Bamboo is used, for example, lemang, and banana leaf. There are a few types of kuih. And for Chinese, they use wok, pot, and natural materials like bamboo, leaf, and wood. And as for Indian, they use pot soil, pan, and banana leaf. Pot soil is also used for their religious rituals, which is called pongal, where they cook a food called pongal. So for food and culture, it is actually very unique because different food in different culture represent different meaning. So for Malay, glutinous rice is to express gratitude. Chinese, cake basket is for increasing status, shark fin for high income, and cake roll for prosperous life. And for Indian, milk and ghee is the source of light, and candy is the goodness in life. So I will pass to the next presenter.
Okay, so for discussion, we will go through sensory part first. Okay, the first one is vision. Vision is a primary qualities which influence the ultimate selection of food that decides whether the food is accepted or rejected. So the visual experience of foods are influenced by color, shape, and also size. Okay, for food color can have various meanings. If the color of a food product does not match our expectations, we will perceive it taste and flavor differently. For example, red is perceived as spicy and bright colors like yellow are perceived as sweet or sour. For the shape part, it can be divided into two, which is food shape and also food packaging. For food shape, it can change the way the food tasted. Round forms such as oval or circle emphasize sweet taste. That's why we always see that chocolate are always in mostly in rounded forms. Next, food packaging. It is corresponds to universal. Angular shapes such as stars or triangle emphasize bitter or carbonated beverages, it can always be seen at the packaging bottle of beer and carbonated alcoholic beverages. Okay, next is size. The factor for size of portion is packaging, unit size, and also energy compensation. According to the study, the portion size of a snack is always smaller than a meal. Okay, we continue with smell. Okay, if we talk about smell, we can relate it with odor. Food odors can shape how the food tastes. Food that contains such strong odors can increase appetite, induce salivation, and release of gastric acid and insulin. After odor exposure, there will be change in appetite for congruent and incongruent food product. For instance, after we smell protein-related odors, our appetite for protein-rich food products will increase. This is going to be the same as other odor categories like carbohydrates, fat, and low-calorie food products. However, other congruence of food products depend on hunger, fullness, prospective consumption, individual odor attribute ratings, and also specific appetite before odor exposure.
Okay, so I will continue on the sensory of taste. So taste is a sensation of flavor perceived in the mouth and throat on contact with a substance. It is the most crucial factor in determining a person's acceptability of a particular food. So it is the most important factor that will decide if the person will accept a food or not. So it is perceived by taste buds that are located on the surface of tongue, by mucosa of the palate, and in areas of the throat. So taste buds are found in the papillae of the tongue, where it is divided into two. One is mushroom-like fungiform papillae on the tips and side of the tongue. So it is this one in the pink dots. On the tips and side of the tongue is called the fungiform papillae, and another one is circumvallate papillae, forming a V shape at the back of the tongue. Okay, so next is the factors that decide variation in taste. So first is the anatomy of the anterior portion of the tongue. For example, fungiform papillae density decides individuals' taste sensation threshold with chemical and electrical tools available for quantification purposes. So the number of fungiform papillae on a person differs from one person to another. So it can be that one person can have more fungiform papillae. Hence, the individual's sensation threshold is more sensitive compared to other person. Okay, so the number of fungiform papillae can be counted using chemical and electrical tool. Next is variation in taste perception depends on someone's acceptability on sweet, fatty, and bitter components in food. So it can be that one person can perceive this food as sweet, but to one person it can be perceived as just fine. Next is health factor. For example, if a person live with diabetes all his life and he is restricted to less sweet food. So when you give that person a sweet food, that will be like, oh, this is too sweet. But if you give the food to the person with normal health, he may think that, oh, this food is just fine. Okay, so there are five primary tastes in food. First is sweet, substance that produce sweet taste, like sucrose, glucose, fructose, saccharin, and aspartame. Salty, ionized salt that forms salty taste, sodium chloride and potassium chloride. Sour comes from the acid found in food related to the concentration of hydrogen ion, mostly from fruit, which is phosphoric acid and citric acid. Bitter is related by compounds like caffeine, comes from tea or coffee, theobromine, chocolate, and phenolic, which comes from grapefruit. Umami is a flavor that they recently discovered, which is a Japanese word meaning delicious, drawn out by glutamic compounds in meat, mushroom, soy sauce, fish sauce, and cheese. So you can say that the taste is like savory. Next is touch. Touch is the sense of touch gives the impression of foods in terms of texture through oral sensation of the skin. Texture is important in determining the eating quality of food and can have a strong influence on food intake and nutrition. So for some people, they may not like mushy food, which is like soft food. So they prefer like hard texture food. So they may opt for that. So the person's decision on if they want to accept a food or not can also depends on the texture. Texture can be divided into different categories by kinesthetic sense in muscle of hands, fingers, tongue, jaw, or lips, which refers to the sense of position and motion, which is, for example, is mechanical hardness or chewiness. So to explain the kinesthetic sense refers to the position and motion of the muscle. So in order to feel the texture of the food, the muscle have to move to feel the texture of the food. So by then they can determine if the food is hard or chewy. Next is by tactile nerves in the surface of skin of hands, lips, or tongue, which refers to the sense of contact, which is geometric, graininess and crumbliness, or mouthfeel, oiliness or moistness. So this one, the muscle doesn't have to move. They just like feel a sense of contact. And then by the sense of contact, they can tell about the texture of the food. If the food is grainy or oily or moist or crumbly. Yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
I will continue on our discussion on the culture. Different cultures are associated with different foods, and taste and thirst cultural entities are usually place-based. For example, it was discovered that individuals who are living in urban regions have a higher sugar consumption compared with individuals who are living in rural areas. And ethnicity is also known to influence oral processing behavior and sensory perception, possibly by affecting the sensory sensitivity. Next is the picture of Malaysian foods. Malaysian heritage traditional cuisine is a mash-up of numerous culture, and it is famous for its rice, agro food, seafood, leaf wrapping culture, and hot and spicy flavor. For example, we have nasi lemak, kuih tiaw, and also roti canai. And I will explain on the studies on sensory characteristic of main ethnicities in Malaysia. Firstly, Malay people, they prefer spicy and sweeter food such as nasi lemak, rendang, macam lemak cili api, and also kuih, which are sweet, like kuih bahulu, onde-onde, and also kuih cek Malay. Next, Indian people, they prefer a more sour and spicy taste. They use lots of coconut milk, chili, and mustard seeds, and etc. And most Indians, meals, especially meats, are prepared using freshly grounded spices like mustard, star anise, cinnamon, clove, cardamom, and others. And lastly is Chinese people, they prefer a salty taste. Chinese people, they incline towards salty food varieties such as salted vegetable and salted rolls. By these salting techniques are normal in the Chinese culture. Next is the adaptation and adjustment of this ethnicity to accept for the acceptability of each food. Firstly, restaurants have blended cuisines from different ethnic groups into their menus. For this explanation is, as long as the food is halal, the Malays as the dominant ethnic group adapt or change some of the popular Chinese and Indian dishes. And next is dishes are adapted by the Malays by blending flavors and tastes to suit their palate, and this is similar to Chinese and Indian cuisines. And next is by the food waste and acculturation. Some of Malaysia's major ethnic foods, such as Chinese and Indian, are thought to be adjusted and adapted by Malaysian ethnics through food waste, which consists of the preparation and consumption, and also as a result of acculturation food, which consists of knowledge, media, and social interaction between ethnics.
Conclusion of our case study is sensory evaluation encompasses visual, smell, taste, and touch, which has a functional role to play in energy intake regulation beyond simply guiding food choice and hedonic value. Sensory evaluation is also influenced by culture and ethnic groups. In regards with culture entities, taste discernments may contrast in different geographical areas. That's all from us. Thank you.